And welcome to the Ace Capone Show. I am your host, Ace Capone. Hit the like button, share, tell your friends about it. Also, if you want to contribute, my Cash App, my PayPal are all down below in the link. Also, I have Buy Me a Coffee. I will add that to the link later. And let's get on with it. So much going on with Donald Trump, who is the best president of all time. Right now, he is in battle with, he went to Davos and he set the record straight. He's not playing with these folks. He is saying everything that U.S. president should have been saying. You have these guys who are bought by outside sources. We shall leave them nameless, from a country, from a territory that really isn't a country. But they have a lot of influence in our country with our politicians, with our policies, with our social policies, Hollywood, media. These people control all of these things. But right now, we have a president who some think is compromised. In some ways, he is compromised. I'm not going to be a liar. I'm not going to pine for Democrats nor Republicans. But I'm not going to be an idiot and say that voting Democrat is going to help improve the lives of Americans, because Democrats are the problem in America, but Republicans aren't the solution. And I'll say it that way. But right now you have the people in the UK who are all up in arms because Trump called them out at Davos and told them that they're not paying their fair share. He told them that, hey, Canada is only a country because they rely on the U.S. to protect them. And right now you have Russia getting caught up in the UK with the UK. There were some Russian ships that were intercepted in the English Channel. And right now the problem is that they say that they understand what Russia is up to. Let's get into it. You have these Russian ships that were intercepted. The Royal Navy has intercepted Russian ships in the English Channel as the UK has warned Vladimir Putin it knows exactly what his Navy is doing. Earlier this week, UK warships and aircraft were activated to shadow Russian vessels during a 2-day operation in coordination with NATO allies. Portsmouth-based patrol ships HMS Mercy and HMS Severn were dispatched alongside a Wildcat helicopter from 815 Naval Air Squadron to intercept Russian corvette Boyki, I think that's how it's pronounced, and accompanying oil tanker MT General Skobiev as they sailed towards the North Sea. Mercy first intercepted the Russian vessel on entry to the channel, taking over shadowing duties from NATO allies after they had monitored them through the Bay of Biscay. Near the Isle of Wight, Severn and Mercy combined with the Wildcat to monitor the group in close coordination, utilizing powerful sensors to gather valuable information and report on their movements. So you have these Russian vessels that are moving through the English Channel. Minister of the Armed Forces said that with this operation, our sailors have once again sent a message to Putin. We know exactly what his Navy is doing. And what are they doing? Every time a Russian ship comes near the UK, the Navy is ready to track, deter, and defend. I don't think the UK could really see the Russian army. But, they can do what they want. But the UK can't really fight. Lieutenant Commander Dan Wardle, commanding officer of HMS Mercy, said, In what has been a busy start to the year, the operation provided another opportunity for my ship's company to demonstrate their continued readiness and ability to safeguard the United Kingdom's maritime interests. But the UK is nothing without the US. If that was the case, then the UK would be over in Afghanistan, the UK would be over in Ukraine, heading this thing. But the US is the lead in the Ukraine, and the US was the lead in Afghanistan. Operating in close coordination with our sister vessel, HMS Severn, and alongside NATO allies, gotta have the allies, right? Has enabled the sharing of experience and best practice, further highlighting the strength and unique nature of the relationship between our nations. Lieutenant Commander Ross Gallagher, Senior Observer and Executive Officer of 815 NAS, added, the activation once again demonstrated the extremely high readiness and professionalism that defines 815 Naval Air Squadron. I'm immensely proud of our engineers who keep our aircraft at peak performance and our air crew who deliver precise surveillance, rapid reporting, and tactile clarity at pace. As Russian vessels transmitted the channel, we kept the operational picture clear and seamlessly integrated with our colleagues at HMS Mercy and HMS Severn. 815 Naval Squadron is built for this level of responsiveness and highly trained, highly coordinated, and always prepared to deliver the active aviation capabilities that protect and safeguard the nation's interests, all while supporting our NATO partners. Basically, they're doing a lot of posturing. Russia's not really concerned about these people. They're doing a lot of talking, but if they wanted to go to battle, they would be in Ukraine. They're not in Ukraine because they can't really see Russia. They really can't. These guys are threatening, but they understand that the U.S. will back them up. The U.S. is the big brother of all the world. We have the best trained, we have the best equipment, we have the best military in the world, hands down. And what happened in Venezuela showed you that we really don't have to we really don't have to put much effort into exerting our will on people. You know, these guys were using Russian and Chinese technology as far as monitoring and also deterrence. And they were both defeated. So if that tells you that China may boast that, oh yeah, they're similar to us, they can match us militarily, but we'd wipe those guys out. They're not trained. Just because you have the equipment doesn't mean you know how to fight. Russian vessels were returning from a deployment in the Mediterranean and were closely watched throughout the voyage by NATO warships. And NATO basically means U.S. sponsored. In a separate operation in the Mediterranean, patrol boat HMS Dagger monitored the movements of the tanker Grinch, which was boarded by French forces. And the French can't fight either. You know, this whole thing with the UK and Europe, these guys are nothing. If they were something, they would have intervened in this Ukraine issue. They would have been sending troops. They would have said, hey, you know, we're going to sit here and stop Putin from advancing. But no, the U.S. was pretty much investing most of the money, and Europe sat by while they bought Russian oil. This is not a contradiction. You're buying Russian oil, but you're telling Russia not to intervene in Ukraine. You can't tell the guy that you are buying your stuff from not to go do something. So now, as Trump, as a good leader, said, hey, you need to buy your oil from us, which is going to give us money. It's going to stop the flow of money to Russia. But India took over that role. And other than China took over that role. They're buying Russian oil. But the simple fact of it, China was also buying Venezuelan oil, which is now our oil. So Trump is doing all the things that he needs to do to intervene in China and Russia's ambition to take over the world. Also, we have this thing with Greenland. Greenland is a nice strategic area for us to protect ourselves. Trump is proposing to build the Golden Dome, and which is going to be an area where we could shoot down missiles that are coming to the U.S. to strike our cities. It is a good strategic point for us to launch attacks on Russia and China. It is a good point for us to stage troops. Greenland is a very good strategic area, and Trump understands this. He knows this. The people in Europe understand this as well. And our enemies know that if we can get a stronghold in Greenland, we can get minerals to build our planes, because the newest versions of planes are using the minerals that are located in Greenland, and we need those minerals. They help make the planes lighter and more agile. We need Greenland to to invest in Greenland, because the Dutch aren't really, Denmark really isn't investing. They don't even have roads between their towns. They have nothing. And matter of fact, Denmark basically holds Greenland as a welfare state. There's no industry there. These people aren't working. You bring investment from America, and you bring military contracts from America to Greenland, they're going to have better shopping. They're going to have better roads. They're going to have a better way of life in Greenland if they're associated with America. And we're going to have something, we're going to ask for something for that. Right now they're saying they're going to give us patches of land to build our military bases. That's fine too. But I don't understand why they're trying to hold out. Give us Greenland. You're not doing anything with it. You've had it for hundreds of years, and you've done nothing with it. So what is the holdup? I think it's just pride. Pride of the countries who are basically unable to do what America's capable of doing. But also, I think that they're trying to hold out because it's Trump. If they thumb their nose at Trump and they defy him, they're thinking, oh yeah, we showed him. But actually, you're showing nothing. You're showing you're being tools. You're not thinking about the people of Greenland. You're not thinking about, hey, what's best for Greenland. You're basically saying we're going to defy Trump because he's Trump, and we're going to basically try to make an irrelevant statement for the world to see. But eventually, it's going to fall to America anyway, because the people in Greenland are going to say eventually, hey, America has our best interests. We'll live a better life and have a better quality of life if we side with the Americans. And they're the only country that can defend us from all of these outside forces. And Denmark isn't capable of doing so. But right now, they, as I said before, they're saying that they have an agreement for patches of land for military bases. But I'm sure it's going to extend more than that, because Trump understands the art of the deal, and he'll pretty much get his way with Greenland. Also, with this Greenland deal, we have, let's get to it.
The Greenland episode of Trump's term is over for now, or for at least this season. Trump got exactly what he wanted today in so many ways. He declared victory with a framework for a deal on Greenland, where apparently he says everyone involved is going to be very happy.
We have a concept of a deal. I think it's going to be a very good deal for the United States, also for them. And we're going to work together on something having to do with the Arctic as a whole, but also Greenland.
Every cable news show Even MS Now spent hours breathlessly reporting on a framework for a deal, what we call the lower thirds, the words down at the bottom of the screen. They all said the same thing.
Trump said he doesn't need
So he looks like he won.
He's not going to use
Trump promises there won't be tariffs on our
if you
allies. The
wanna
stock market ran back up, and there will be no invasion of Greenland, but we could have told you that.
want to work with us. We'll remember.
Probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force where we would be, frankly, unstoppable. But I won't do that. Okay? Now everyone's saying, oh, good.
He planned this whole thing.
There you go.
The Trump playbook is predictable. In fact, he writes about it in The Art of the Deal. Make maximalist demands, threaten wild consequences or actions to get those demands. And this is the important one that has continued. And this is how political deals, geopolitics, is different than, say, business. Because Trump has now forced everyone on the other side of him, or even those sort of not really opposed or against him, to lose their collective minds.
My message to him is it's time to calm down, where we're not going to be blackmailed into a position we're not prepared to own for a long time.
This is a wake-up call, a bigger one than we ever had.
We know the old order is not coming back. We shouldn't mourn it. Nostalgia is not a strategy.
And then Trump's final step is to declare victory.
As I said before, President Trump uses the art of the deal all the time, which basically means I'm going to make some ridiculous demands, and you're going to say no to them. Then I'm going to come back and ask you for something less, and you can't say no to it. And basically, he gets his way. I like that. But the simple fact of the matter is, when these people understand what's in the best interest of their own country and the best interest of their people, they're going to understand that it's best to make a deal with Trump and America, because the alternative is China and Russia. And China and Russia don't care about your people. They don't care about your politics or your religion. They just want to make the money. And this is the problem going on in Africa right now, because these Africans are lazy. They have no motivation. They have no ingenuity. And China comes and says, hey, we'll build your state capital. Hey, we'll build your roads and your bridges. And these lazy Africans who are incapable of running their country, let alone a continent, they say, yeah, go ahead and build those roads and bridges for us, because we don't have the capability to do it, even though, I'll touch on this later, they could. They're just too lazy to do so. Now you're in debt to the Chinese. You have no way to pay them back. So what do they do next? They say, well, since you're broke and incompetent, we will take your minerals, we'll take your gold, we'll take your diamonds, we'll take your copper, we'll take your uranium, we'll take your oil. And this is why Africa is in debt, and they're suffering because they're incapable of utilizing their own resources. So they have to go out and ask other people to do it for them. You know, when was the last time you saw an African gas station, an African oil company, African products sold in America? You don't see it because they're incapable of doing so, because they don't have the mind nor the ability to produce anything. Africa is a failed continent with incompetent morons who are sitting around worried about being flashy, worrying about being the only ones with money. Just like in the black community, you have these people who are incapable. It's rampant. It's throughout. They do not have the ability to run anything. They can run it into the ground, but they don't know how to run it to where it's prosperous. Greenland will benefit from America. The UK benefits, and all of Europe benefits from America with our products, with the sale of their products to us, because we're the biggest consumers in the world, because we're the wealthiest country in the world, which leads us to Venezuela. They talked about Venezuela and having oil. And Trump said that, hey, you know what? We're going to take the oil. He's seizing tankers, and we're going to take that oil. And when they asked him, hey, what are you going to do with the oil? He says, we're going to keep the tankers, and we're going to sell the oil because it's for our benefit. Because we had a contract with Venezuela. They ran us out. Now we're back. We're going to establish ourselves. We're going to improve the infrastructure. We're going to drill, and we're going to make money because they weren't making any money because they're incompetent as well down south in South America. So we're going to use that oil for our benefit, which is going to pay off our debt. It's going to generate income. We're going to give them a little bit of money because it's theirs as well. So their life is going to improve, but America is going to get cheap oil. We're going to milk it for what it's worth. And our president is the only one able to do it because everyone said they hated Maduro. They put a $25 million bounty on his head. The Democrats did, and other people around the world. But they did nothing to get him out of power. They understood he was an illegitimate dictator, and they did nothing about it. They were all talk until a man named Donald J. Trump went into Venezuela and without any casualties on our side, grabbed him, brought him to America to be put on trial. And now the same people who are out there saying Maduro is terrible and needs to be out of power, who did nothing about it, now want to cry about it, saying, oh, you invaded a sovereign country. No, it was not a sovereign country. It was a dictator who basically ran the duly elected president out of the country. So you get these crazy bleeding heart liberals who are crying for Maduro, the dictator they put a $25 million bounty on. See how the hypocrisy is always on the left? You complain about the guy, say you don't want him in power, but then again, you complain about the man who got him out of power. Now Venezuela, the Venezuelan people are out in the streets celebrating. And what did the media do? They said, oh my God, they showed the protests in America of white liberals complaining about Maduro. And they used the same stupid talking points talking about, oh, he took a leader out of a sovereign country. He wasn't their leader. The media will always tell you a story, but they're not going to tell you the story. Trump got it done. He's a man of his word, and he's going to get it done. And now they're talking about Venezuelan oil.
Over 50 million barrels of oil is already moved or moving into the United States. We're going to start drilling very soon. We have the biggest companies in the world. We have them, and they're going to be going in. They're all negotiating right now. And we're representing the nation, and the nation is very thrilled by that because we're really good at this. And they'll be taking in more money than they ever have, but we'll be taking in a lot of money too. That's going to do two things. It's going to make the United States a lot of money, and it's also, it's going to make Venezuela a lot of money, but it's also going to bring down oil prices even further. We have oil prices down, in many cases, to $2.30 a gallon, and in also numerous cases, $1.99, below $2, over 50 million barrels.
They got $300 million from America, and the people of Venezuela are going to benefit from that. Venezuela's interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, said on Tuesday that the country has received $300 million from oil sales, the first proceeds from U.S. President Donald J. Trump's announced 50 million barrel oil supply deal with Caracas, following the capture of President Nicolas Maduro earlier this month. Trump said separately on Tuesday his country had taken the 50 million barrels out of Venezuela and was selling some of it in the open market through shipping records. Those shipping records show that volume has not been exported. Who cares? These people are always trying to find something negative. We won And the victor makes the story. They dictate the story. And these silly liberals sit around trying to find everything to be anti-American. The media is anti-American. The Zionists are anti-American. You have the Democrats who are anti. There's so many anti-American people in this country. We need to run them out of here. If you don't like America, get out, because we're definitely not going to sit back and let you change this country into a socialist country. We're not going to let you degrade us into a bunch of starving people getting in line to be rationed our food, nor our supplies for our lives. There needs to be a war on socialism. We need to make laws. If the Republicans had spines, they would make laws against socialism. They would make laws against fake elections. They would make laws against illegals. They would make the laws to improve the lives of Americans. But they're not, because Republicans do a lot of talking, but once they get power, they do absolutely nothing. And on the flip side, the Democrats will jail you. They will censor you. They will infringe upon your rights. And they will push their agenda upon you whether you like it or not. And that's how Democrats get down. Reuters reported last week that 4 Venezuelan banks had been notified by the country's government that they would split $300 million of oil revenues deposited in an account in Qatar, enabling them to sell dollars to Venezuelan oil companies that needed foreign exchange to pay for materials. Another thing why we are in Venezuela is that we need to shore up the petrodollar. If you don't understand the petrodollar is how we maintain dominance in the world, because oil is sold in dollars. I know Saudi Arabia did a deal with China in the Wuhan, and that was totally unorthodox. What we need is to maintain dominance of the dollar as the currency of oil exchange and people around the world. The dollar is strong because we have a strong military and we are all over the place. Now, if you switch up that currency like the BRICS nations are trying to do, that becomes a problem. That hurts our economy. That hurts our economic power and control around the world. So with SWIFT, which is the banking system that operates in the dollar, and people use that system for all types of exchanges. When you start to mess with the exchange and you start to mess with the petrodollar, America gets upset. And we have a president who is pro-American and is looking out for the interests and the livelihood of all Americans. So that'll let you understand that the move in Venezuela was a strategic plan. It has the biggest oil reserve in the world. Couple that with America, now we have control of the oil market. Now we have the ability to say that the dollar is the standard currency around the world. Now, if we take over Iran, which is the second largest oil reserve in the world, you get the picture. We need to maintain dominance. The instability in Iran is not by accident. You have the Israeli military over there stirring up trouble. The Mossad is over there in the crowd, and as it just went blank. I just went blank. Not Michael, not Bolton. I forget. But Steve Bannon said that the Mossad is over in Iran and they are out there helping the resistance and pushing and encouraging the resistance in Iran. Because once you overthrow their leadership, America will then have some influence in that country. And also, if that leadership works with America, we can have some influence in their oil. And when we control Iranian oil, Venezuelan oil, and American oil, our country will be very, very stable because now we have influence over the petrodollar, we have influence over SWIFT, and we have influence over the energy that runs the world. So all the things that Trump is doing is beneficial for America, but what I definitely disagree with are the people that are behind him keeping this garbage going. I understand that we need to shore up the petrodollar. I understand we need to keep dominance over SWIFT, but I also understand that people who are outside of this country are influencing our politics. They're also buying our politicians, which is dictating American policy inside of America and outside of America. These people are censoring people. They're buying up the media. They're buying up Hollywood. They're buying up all the things that influence the people in our country, whether it's education, or it's, like I said before, the media. They're controlling how you think and how you live. And that is dangerous. No entity outside of America, no religious sect or cult should have any influence over how Americans live. And that needs to stop. I don't understand. I really don't have the answer to how we run them out of our country and stop their influence because their money is so vast. And people like Ben Shapiro, and you have people like Nick Fuentes who sit here and ignore these people. And my problem with Nick Fuentes isn't that, he's so much of a Zionist, but the way he talks, he's anti-Trump, he's anti-conservative. He basically is a liberal. And the fact that he is out here, bashing Trump. I was like, if you're bashing Trump, who are you supporting? What's your solution? If you don't have a solution outside of Trump, who is not a perfect person or president, but he is all we have between the Zionists and normal life. The Zionists have to go, but we have Trump, who is basically trying to push pro-American and America First policy. We need a real America First person, but it's going to take a lot to get that person to be successful. You're going to have people in Congress who are America First. But right now, people who are in Congress are pro-Zionist. They're not America First. And once we realize who's pro-Zionist and vote them out of office and promote America First candidates, then we can change the course of this country. But as I said before, Donald Trump was talking about the money that Venezuela was getting, the policies. He was talking about Greenland and the deal that was worked out. This man is doing so much in such a small amount of time. He also has to deal with the Ukraine-Russia deal issue. And I think they're coming to a consensus on that. And because Vladimir Zelensky is running out of troops. He's running out of money. He's working out a deal with Japan and in NATO to give him money. But that can only last so much because NATO's not going to commit troops to that, because that would escalate the war. Right now, Zelensky needs to just give up, but he's one of those boys being influenced from the country outside of America. And there are people who want this war because they think if they can weaken Russia, they can basically destroy Russia. But that's not going to happen. It's not, because they have the oil revenues, and they have the technology to keep fighting the war. They may not have the best technology, but they have technology. Russia could actually end this war overnight if they wanted to, but they're trying to be diplomatic, and they're allowing these people an opportunity to come to the table. Or Putin could just say, you know what, we'll just pull a Donald Trump and go get Zelensky. We'll gather him up, bring him to Russia, make him stand trial, and end this war overnight. Because there's no one else to stand up if you capture Zelensky. And I think that would be the best thing for Putin to do. Just fly in there overnight, get yourself a plan, use your technology, gather him up, use your intel to find where he is, gather him and bring him back to Russia and say, hey, you know what? This guy's a war criminal. Simple as that. And no one would be upset. No one would be able to do anything about it because it's a conflict between these two countries. NATO would be upset, but they can't do anything about it. What are you going to do, invade Russia? I don't think so. This guy's a puppet. And Zelensky understands that he's going around begging for money and resources, but he can't win this war. It's just one of those wars of attrition where he's saying, I'm going to keep fighting until everything's just done. There's nothing he's going to gain from this war. Russia is gaining more territory. They're not going to give it back. And he's trying to hold out saying, we want you to go back to the old maps. It's not going to happen, buddy. It's not going to happen. So you may as well just give up. I don't know what kind of face he's trying to save, but it's not looking good for him. It really isn't. Another thing I wanted to talk about was Minnesota. The people in Minnesota are out here fighting ICE in the streets. And they're trying to talk about this lady, Good, and the shooting that occurred. And the problem with this is that this woman, who is an activist, dropped her child off at daycare and with her lesbian friend, tried to say wife, but women can't marry women. I'm not going to sit here and play that liberal nonsense. I'm going to dumb myself down. Block traffic to stop ICE from completing their duties. They asked her to get out of the way. She refused. And you have the ICE officer with his camera or his cell phone recording the incident. And you have liberals out here banging their heads against the wall, trying to come up with all types of excuses because liberals are irresponsible. They don't want people to practice responsibility. They're sitting here saying, why did you have to shoot her? Well, let me give you the ways. She dropped her kid off at daycare and she went to block the road. Strike number one. You did it on purpose. You refused to move. They ordered you lawfully. They gave you a lawful order to get out of the car. You refused. You said, "Hey, bro, I don't have anything. I don't have any problem with you." And this is the talking points that they're using. Just because she said, "Well, I don't have any problems with you," that means, oh, she really didn't want to hit anybody. That's a lie. It doesn't matter what she says. She saw the officer in front of the vehicle. He was recording the vehicle, getting the plates and everything. He moved in front of the vehicle because she was sitting there. They gave her a lawful order to get out. She was supposed to get out. She backs the vehicle up. And then she started driving. She's looking at the officer. She started driving towards the officer. The officer drew his weapon before she started to back up. And when she started to move forward, she gunned her car towards the officer. She turned a wheel and she gunned her vehicle at the officer. She struck the officer, which prompted him to delete her. Now that she's gone, everyone's, oh my God, he didn't have to kill. You weren't there. That's number one. Number two, you didn't see the vehicle as he did. That's number two. You can't tell him what was necessary and unnecessary, which is number three. His job is to stop the threat. He doesn't have an obligation to retreat. He was there legally. She was there illegally. Case is closed. He is not going to be brought up upon charges as these liberals want because he didn't do anything wrong. They don't see the fact that she was in the wrong. They don't want to say that because it hurts their false cause. They want these people to be out there. They don't care about her life. It's like George Floyd. George Floyd was a criminal and a worthless individual. But you know what? They used him to push their agenda, to attack police because they don't like the police. They sat there and pretended to like the Capitol Police on January 6th, but the Capitol Police allowed the people to come into the Capitol. They don't want to show you that video footage, but even though it was released, they didn't want to show you that. Just like the AG in Minnesota didn't want to show you the George Floyd video of the policeman talking to him, being nice to him, putting him in the car and saying, hey, you know what, we'll just roll the windows down because you said that you couldn't breathe. They don't show you the part where George Floyd asked to be put on the ground. Keith Ellison, who was the AG of Minnesota, he held that footage. Why did you hold the footage, Keith? Because you understood that it went against your false narrative that the police were brutalizing black men. He asked to be put on the ground. This man was drugged up, he had a bad heart, and he was a criminal. But they made him a martyr for their cause. Just like this lesbian woman who was out there blocking the traffic, trying to prohibit ICE from doing their duty, refused a lawful order and gunned her car towards an officer, lost her life. They don't want to tell you that. They want to say, oh my God, this innocent woman was out there. She wasn't doing anything wrong. He just shot her and ended her life. It sounds good, but that's not the facts. And facts are always a problem for the left because they hate facts. They only want to tell you a story, not the story. And that is the story. This woman shouldn't have been there. Why aren't they asking her that? Why aren't they asking the people that? But you're out there rioting and attacking ICE, saying that, oh, she was taken out wrongly, when in fact, she shouldn't have been there, and she pretty much caused her own demise. Well, I don't know, but let me know what you think. This is Ace Capone signing out. And on that note, peace. And I'm gone.